Hey legends, I hope you're all fantastic. There has been a firmware extravaganza for Fractal users. Firmware 21 for the X-3 is out as a full release, and I was going to use the X-3 for this video, but then I saw the FM9 has a public beta for firmware 4, which has the same Cygnus X-2 amp modeling improvements. There's the hotcake drive in here, there's new amp models. There's a bunch of fun stuff. So let's just make some noise with this. I'm actually going to start out with the Brit 800 model in here, which I've always enjoyed, but it's never really been my favorite Marshall in the box on this firmware. And I don't know if I've changed or it has changed, but I'm really vibing with it at the moment. So Les Paul standard with some Martin A. Smith humbuckers in it, straight into the FM9. The cab that I'm using is my go-to LT TV Mix 7 cab, but basically I have taken the low cut and high cut out of the equation. So this is wide open and will sound super nasty. Stock settings. I really like the way that sounds, but you know, on a real JCM 800, you turn the master volume up and you have a pretty good time. So I'll bring it up to, what, 7 out of 10, and I'll just back off the level a little bit. This is even better in my opinion. Oh, that is what I want out of a Marshall. I do like to go into the speaker tab basically on all these amp models, and I find this is the real secret sauce in the amp block. So you can change the impedance curve, which I've talked about before. I've actually turned the speaker thump up to 5 from the default value over here. I did say stock settings at the start, but I like to turn speaker compliance up just a little bit as well in there. And you can play around with the impedance curve, but for the 800, I think this sounds pretty good. Anything like cleanish to crunchy-ish, I like the speaker drive at stock settings. For super high gain stuff like we'll hear, I turn it down a little bit to 1, but it's about as much tweaking as you need to do on this. This is just an amazing sounding amp model on here. You know, a real JCM 800 is often an amazing sounding amp, so that's no surprise. I'll just drop some plate reverb on here and let you hear it. This guitar has a very scratchy volume pot, so there's little scratch noises were coming from the guitar on there, but yeah, the dynamics on there are unreal. I really like the way that sounds, in case you haven't figured it out just yet. In the amp block, I'll switch over to channel B. This is the jumped version of the 50-watt 6CA7 power tube at Plexi. Again, stock settings, it's just a pretty good time. A little bit out of tune on this at the moment. I could fix that, but first what I'm going to do, you can see I've turned the speaker thump and the speaker compliance up as before on there. This one takes the preamp boost pretty nicely. The CC boost is amazing with plexis in there. It's also really good using the shimmer drive, but I'll let you hear that one. This model's pretty awesome with the gain up on a Strat as well. I have turned the preamp boost off, just kind of balancing out the normal gain and the treble gain to get the texture you like. I find is kind of essential with anything on a jumped plexi, but it's not too crazy bright on this Strat, which I like. That is super fun. I should mention, so the Cygnus X-2 modeling, you've got these plate suppressor diode parameters, which are in the, where are they? Are they in the power amp section or the power tubes section? Power tube section. So, you know, on something like a train wreck, which can get super fizzy, basically that's a thing that's in the amp. So if you're getting too much fizz, I mean, first I would go in and maybe kind of tweak the cab block in here and go, you know, I normally would have this high cut around 8 to 10K or something. So let's go 8K, and let's just bring up the low cut with maybe a slightly steeper slope at 80 Hertz. This would be more of my go-to if I'm just jamming or playing live. Recording, I would leave it wide open. But then, if you still have a bit too much of that kind of fizz, chuck the plate suppressor diodes parameter on. It's kind of fun. You might like it. Pretty subtle on there. Let's move along to the Brit Studio 20. I've featured this in a couple of different videos, but it's just a lovely sounding edge breakup amp. You know, neck pickup of the Strat, maybe a bigger reverb. I've been playing around with the Rich Hall reverb a lot more on here. Let's have a listen to that. The Marshalls are sounding pretty slamming on there with basically no tweaking. I love the way they're sounding in there, and I'll be playing around with them a lot more, especially that Brit 800. This firmware has kind of brought it to life for me. So let's move over to the ODS 100 Clean. I've paired it up with one of my own EV cabinet IRs, and I've got the Aurora delay on there. I did a breakdown of this preset for the FM3 on the G66 YouTube channel, but basically different flavors of the hotcake drive in here. I'll let you hear this wide open and just go through the scenes, and it's kind of going to be used for different purposes, like some just as a very subtle tone enhancer, some more for a fuzzy thing, some more for a kind of overdrive and boost. Such a great drive. I love the real world pedal. I'm stoked that it is in the FM3, the FM9, and the XFX3 now. I think a lot of people will enjoy the hotcake drive in there. There's a new Herbert model in here. There was a lot of discussion about the Herbert models on the forum, so I'll go back to this preset that I put together with Herbie Channel 2 Plus. What I've noticed between the new Herbie Mark III and the other ones are that you got to bring the master volume up on the original models to kind of match up with what's going on in the power amp section of the other one, but you'll hear the difference in there. The Channel 2 Plus and the Channel 3 are darker and more compressed, and then the new Mark III has more of this just kind of like mid-range punch about it. I've tried to dial them in fairly similarly. I will swap over to a Drop C PRS in a second and boost them because that's the way I like to use them, but I'll just give you a very quick comparison. As I said, the Mark III, it almost kind of sounds a little more Marshall flavored than the other sounding models on there. The others kind of tend more towards that kind of dark recto thing, but a little bit of multi-band compression to tame the low end, and then in the amp block, chucking on the grinder boost is a recipe for a whole lot of fun. I actually think using, say, the new Herbert Mark III for a set of double tracks and then using the Channel 3 make a pretty good combination. They kind of complement one another in different ways while still maintaining the same core texture. The Mark Series amps still sound ridiculous, so this is my main live preset on here. Bit of reverb, bit of pitch detune happening after the reverb just for some stereo fun. You know, this is always the first preset that I test with new firmware, and kind of never fails to put a big smile on my face. Again, in the speaker tab, I haven't bumped the speaker compliance on here. Maybe I should tweak this. And I don't know, you might think this is just totally unnecessary on here and you might not hear the difference, but I think I feel a little bit of a difference and I can hear a difference in here. You can see as well, speaker drive down to 1 on here. For the super high gain stuff, I just like the way that sounds. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna turn the speaker thump up to 5 and let you hear the difference and see if you can notice anything, and then I'll do the same thing with speaker compliance. These have just become my go-tos. Absolutely filthy and glorious. I'll leave one little more nugget in here, and this doesn't really have to do with the firmware update, but I've been playing around with the Stereo Mind Guy a lot in here, and the modulation in there as well, and just measuring some other gear and trying to match it with this, and been pretty stoked with the delay sounds that I've been getting out of this. One thing I have noticed with these like BBD and tape style delays is because they are so bandwidth limited in there, you know, there's a lot of high cut and there's a compander, actually playing with them with a mix above 50% and compensating with the level up a little bit helps. But then what's really, really cool with this Stereo Mind Guy, I'll let you hear it without any modulation and then kind of emulating the vibrato mode on there. So just turning the depth up on here, the phase at 90 degrees and the rate around 4 Hertz. Sounds pretty massive. I'll let you hear the difference. The same thing applies to reverbs as well. I mentioned I've been playing around with the rich hall reverb a lot. Let's actually go back, say, to my main live preset over here, which is this one. And just for something different on a lead sound, I'll go over to channel 2 and I might turn the multi-tap delay off and I'll go to a different block over here. You might have noticed this thing that I call like 224 over here. I'm not saying that I've matched it to like a lexicon style thing or anything. It's just my reference for that kind of sound, where you go into the advanced section, you bring the early level down a little bit, add a little bit of, no, I haven't tweaked the EQ in here at all. All I'm going to do is just bring the mix up to like 35%, and rich hall into some stereo pitch detune is a bit of a vibe. It's a whole lot of fun on there. And then, if I was playing clean, I might actually turn the mix up to about 60% and compensate by bringing the level up as well. I think that is more than enough from me for today. If you like what I'm doing on the channel, there's a bunch of ways to support it. Just check the video description. You can grab my IRs for free, either by checking the video description or by going to the Fractal Exchange. A bunch of these presets are up on there. My presets are in a Dropbox folder, which I share with all my patrons who support me over on Patreon. If you like some of the stuff I was playing, you might like what I do with my band Ragdoll as well. All that stuff is linked in the video description. If you want to use the beta firmware as well, just go to the Fractal forum and let me know your thoughts. What are you enjoying with this particular firmware, either on the FM3, the FM9, or the X-2 I hope you all have a great day, and I'll see you all next time. Thanks so much for watching.